You know, I really love when we get new commanders in Rise of Kingdoms, and today Eleanor of Aquitaine was revealed. And as I looked through her kit, I started to scratch my head more and more, trying to figure out, wait, so what am I supposed to do with this commander exactly? Stick him in a pass? I guess? So stick around in this video as we break down Eleanor of Aquitaine and cavalry players. Oh, man. Hey, look, if you're in a small kingdom, you might be hyped, but if you're in a meta kingdom, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're going to do with this thing. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and I have spent the last, hour trying to figure out what the heck Eleanor of Aquitaine, the new cav commander, is going to be good for. I've been chatting with Chisgule, I've been chatting with my legendary guard, I've been chatting with Cortex, and we're really digging deep. We're like, I'm like, do you pair with Jadwiga? Like, what are you supposed to do here? Like, where's the synergy? So let's review the kit, and we'll talk about why it is that I'm struggling to figure out what to do with her. All right. So her skills. She's got 3 talent trees: cav, garrison, and defense. Everyone has 3 talent trees. Thank you, Chisgule Gaming, for that obvious statement. Lily of the Wilds. 1,000 rage requirement, single target damage, 2,300 damage factor. So already not a jump in damage factor from commanders we got a year or two ago. So the fact that the damage factor is low means that we must get some really cool effect. And the effect is, for the next 3 seconds, this commander's troop takes 10% less skill damage. Well, I mean, it's an effect. It ain't much. So as far as active skills go, I would rate this as one of the weakest I've seen the developers release in as long as I can remember. I'd have to really think back to isn't this kind of just worse than Nevsky? Anyways, let's keep going because there's a reason this active skill is not completely busted. And we'll talk about that. Next up, Lion Mother. This commander's cavalry units gain 20% attack. Look, for a garrison, I want defense, I want health. Attack is fine. I'm interested, but I want defense and I want health. Because the one thing I am worried about is flags getting swarmed when I try to fight in Kingsland. Everything else, whatever, kind of doesn't matter. If this commander is serving as a garrison commander, okay, so not in the open field, their garrison takes 15% less counterattack? That is not scaling. What I mean by that does not scale is that what you want on a garrison commander is things that scale with the number of units hitting you or reduces the damage you take, like normal attack damage or skill damage, that's going to scale based off the number of additional things that start swarming the garrison. Taking less counterattack damage is one of the weirdest damage reductions you could give to a garrison, for sure. Because it has no scalability whatsoever. Not even a multi. It does not even scale to the value of a multi-rally. Okay, so 15% less counterattack damage taken. All right. If you don't know what counterattack damage is, that is damage you take by virtue of attacking one thing. So this has no scaling. Okay. All right. Fine. Rock Crystal Vase. This commander's cavalry units gain 15% defense. 15 is really low. Am I missing something here, chat? So the rest of this needs to be busted good. And actually, Rock Crystal Vase, the rest of this is busted good. If this commander is serving as a garrison commander, whenever their garrison is hit with a basic attack, it is a 10% chance to use Lily of the Wilds. That's the active skill all over again with a cooldown of 10 seconds. Finally, we find the thing. The reason the active skill is not strong is because of this. Because you can actually use this thing all over again if you're getting swarmed. Now, that's cool only if you can live long enough to do it. So the rest of this kit needs to make her survivable so that this part of the kit is even relevant. So as we continue on, Grandmother of Europe. This commander's troop deals 10% more all damage. That's nice. Okay, that's good. If this commander is serving as a garrison, so this is not going to be in the open field, for 3 seconds after their troop uses an active skill, up to 5 nearby allied or friendly troops, including this one, will gain 5% bonus damage. So it's really your army gets 5% bonus damage. And if there are 4 armies nearby fighting in the field, then they too will get bonus damage. Okay. I mean, look, there's several situations here. One is you're defending and you have no field at all, which is common. You're defending and it's contentious, but the enemy's fighting it anyways. That's where this is kind of valuable, because there's more here. For every allied or friendly troop nearby, excluding this commander's troop gains an extra up to 5% all damage. But remember, all of this is for 3 seconds. So best case, for 3 seconds after you use an active skill, you get somewhere between, I don't know how this really works. Is it 6 and 10% all damage? Like the 5 over here is guaranteed, and then this is the variable amount? Question mark? So between 6 and 10% all damage? I don't know, man. All damage is really cool. It is very powerful. But remember, this garrison needs to live long enough for any of that to be relevant, right? And that brings us to the expertise skill. This commander's troop takes 5% less damage. Hey, that's tankiness. And deals 10% more skill damage. Okay. To its current target. Hold up. Hold up. So that's not even really giving you anti-swarm, is it? Unless this is grammatically incorrect or grammatically ambiguous, such that what they really mean is this commander's troop takes 5% less damage, period. This commander's troop deals 10% more skill damage to its current target. If that's what they mean, cool, we take 5% less damage from everything. I don't think that's what they mean, because it's all one sentence. So I think the way I'm supposed to interpret this is that it takes 5% less damage and deals 10% more skill damage to its current target, which means she's got no tankiness almost at all. So if she has no tankiness at all, you have to pair with someone that is extremely tanky in order to get value from this. And the way I would think about this commander is that she basically says, hey, yo, you want to swarm me? I'm going to mess up your rally. You want to come at me? I am going to do so much damage to your rally. But does it matter? but does it matter? Let's talk about this. So if maybe someone is rallying your garrison, okay, and they start to swarm your garrison, but then you pop a bunch of troops out of the cities that you had stationed there waiting for just this moment to swarm the rally, like maybe these extra damage triggers are relevant. But I think at the end of the day, like, this garrison can't hang, not in a flag. Now, in a fort, probably better, because you have more troops, less likely to get swarmed, better buffer there as long as you're keeping it full. Maybe that is really, really sweet. In a pass, ayo, you can't really swarm this thing, which also means you can't really get the upside, not in a meaningful way, of that skill that's like 10% chance to trigger the active all over again every time you receive a basic attack. So I'm not sure what to do with this commander. In fact, the way I summarized it in my conversation with Cortex and Chisgule is at least one of these things must be true. First, this commander isn't designed for the swarm meta, it's designed for the masses. Maybe small kingdoms don't really have any swarming going on, and you can pair with Jan Ziska and like collect wins. I would totally believe that perhaps that's what this commander is designed to do, and that is the problem it's designed to solve, is cavalry in non-meta kingdoms needed a better garrison against rallies. All right. The next thing that could be true is this commander is actually good and we just haven't figured it out yet. But let me tell you, we looked at all kinds of commanders, and we'll go do this together in a minute here and talk about that and what could you pair. And the next thing that could be true is the developers heard player feedback for less frequent commanders and instead are intentionally making fewer relevant commanders. Because the next thing that could be true is that the developers are aggressively curbing power creep. Because there's no power creep here as far as I can tell. I mean, I could totally be wrong. But Chisgule, I believe, declared that this is a pre-Season of Conquest power level commander, which, like, not really true on the active skill all damage, but I get what he's saying. And, like, the final thing that could be true is that the developers perhaps have lost touch with what endgame players value in meta kingdoms. One of those things, at least one, has to be true. Because the thing that meta players want in endgame kingdoms is anti-swarm. That is the one and only thing of relevance to an endgame kingdom. There are plenty of ways to defend a fort or a pass, and you can find means to trade well. But when it comes down to flags, your ability to successfully hold flags is going to determine who is going to win or lose Kingsland. And yeah, I get that fighting over the other zones also definitely matters. It is so much easier to obviously hold a fort, especially because you can build forts all over each other, right? Fort on fort on fort on fort on fort in most KVKs. Like, even if you lose a fort, fine. Like, you can hold it for 24 hours, whatever. You can find ways, right? So before we jump in game here and try to look for synergy, let's just remind ourselves, 2300 damage factor. Okay. For 3 seconds, you'll take 10% less skill damage, 20% attack, 15% less counter taken, 15 defense, 10% chance when you're getting targeted to use your active again. Very cool. You deal 10% more damage. And in certain situations, you can get another 10% more damage for 3 seconds after using an active. And this commander's troop takes 5% less damage and deals 10% more skill damage to the current target. So let's jump in game, try to find the synergy. I think the most obvious thing to try to do here is to say, hey, when was the last time we got a cav garrison? And pair the two cav garrisons together. So Jan Ziska was the last cav garrison we got. And pairing with Jan Ziska, I think, will be great in a fort or also really in a pass. Because on Jan Ziska, you're looking at 2200 damage factor. Plus, if you have less than 50% of units remaining, you're going to do a little extra damage here to 250. All right, so it's not a ton of damage, but that'll get boosted. You'll see in a second. You're looking at 15% attack. Cavalry units also gain 15% defense and also deal 10% more skill damage. I mean, bro, my guy over here on a single skill has more stats than you're getting from the new commander across all our skills. All right, whatever. Then from here, take 10% less normal damage. If this commander is serving as a garrison commander, whenever it takes skill damage, it is a 10% chance to dispel all normal buffs from the attacker, and that goes up to a 50% chance. Normal buffs include things like attack, defense, health, healing received. Okay, cool. From there, this commander's troops gain 20% health. That thing that we needed on the other garrison commander, it is here. Whenever this troop launches a basic attack, it has a 10% chance, okay, to boost normal damage by 20%. Huge. That is definitely needed. And that has a cooldown of 8 seconds. And this boosts the active skill damage on the expertise. Now it is 2400 damage factor with 300 damage factor hitting 3 nearby troops. So 2700 damage factor, right? Remember, this commander's like 2 years old? Isn't it 2 years old? Yeah, a year or two, right? I mean, geez, I can show you the unlock date. 2022, folks. It's 2024. All right? This is 2024. So this commander does more damage. Okay? Now, granted, the expertise is enhancing the active. It's a little complicated. There's no effect on there. All right, fine. Right? But the point I'm trying to make is that today, under no circumstance would we say that Jan Ziska is a competent anti-swarm garrison. It's not. You get wrecked if this thing gets swarmed. The only thing that could really handle swarms, and trust me, we tried in the last KVK against the strongest kingdoms in the game. We're not fooling around. We put every trick and test we could come up with to try to crack what to do, okay? And we used Gorgo with Attila, and that slapped. Technically, Attila with Gorgo was better in that order, strangely. Very strange. Could have to do with armaments that were being used. But the point I'm trying to make is that garrison was insane for anti-swarm. We could 2-for-1. If we used literally almost anything else, it would get popped. It would get destroyed. It would get absolutely shredded. So Jan Ziska with the new commander, I don't think that's it, man. For a pass, sure. For a fort, sure. But if you just swarm it, that thing is going to melt, I would assume. Now, you do need to swarm competently. Hey, look, the new garrison commander benefits profoundly from an incompetent swarm, where a couple people swarm, but not everyone. That rally is going to start getting wrecked from all the extra active skills. All right? So if Jan Ziska's not it, where are we supposed to look? I tried to say, well, what about other garrison commanders? What if you use an artifact and You pair with like Gorgo. Is that a thing? And like she's reducing your skill damage dealt. I don't think it's a thing. It might be fine, but it's certainly not better anti-swarm than just using Attila in an artifact KVK. And you have to use an artifact if we're talking about using an infantry commander already, right? If you really wanted to go all in on anti-swarm, I mean, again, I am just desperately reaching for solutions, but is the answer Charles Martel? Like if we're desperately reaching for anti-swarm, you get the counterattack, you get shielding, which is survivability, you get some defense and health, and a bunch of attack stats by virtue of the museum buff. I don't love it, but it's like a thing you could do. Do you see why this is getting weird? If we go even further back, like I was mentioning with Jadwiga, which I would not recommend, I mean, what are we even talking about? Like, she's got such low damage factor. Even at the time she was released, her damage factor was super low. So she's got 1,500 damage factor, okay? And for the next 3 seconds, you deal 20% more damage, which is cool. But there's like not even really major synergy with using an active skill. Like, this commander we are getting maybe is setting up for a thing in the future. From a game design standpoint, obviously the developers have a much bigger picture of the story arc. Presumably they thought about all these things. But what I think about as a player in the short term is, hey, like you just released Lapu Lapu, and Lapu Lapu is arguably not particularly relevant in the rally and garrison meta. So what I would have thought is that perhaps they make Lapu Lapu more relevant. He's a new commander in the game. He's not seeing as much play for garrisons, perhaps, as maybe they thought. I mean, but that synergy is not really here either, because we need that anti-swarm. He doesn't have it. So he does really punish rallies, which is cool. You like to see that. He goes in even more against rallies here, which is fine, but he's not punishing the swarmers, and the new commander needs a way to punish swarmers. All right? The kit is fine, but there's not actually major synergy here. The only thing I could find is whenever this commander's troop uses an active skill, hey, yo, you do get extra active skill activations on the new commander, but all you get here is 10% all damage, and it's only for 3 seconds. So this is not like enough synergy to be like, we've revived Lapu Lapu, you know? All right, so if it's not Lapu Lapu, like, is there some other leadership garrison? It could be. And, you know, my best bet here is maybe you pair with Hera. All right, maybe Hera with the new commander actually ends up being the jam. And why is that? Well, the new commander is begging for survivability and even area of effect damage, okay? And Hera has that. So Hera's going to be shielding, doing AoE damage. All right, that's on plan. Next skill gives health. That's on plan, okay? Whenever you are launching basic attacks, you have a chance to boost your counterattack. That's on plan. This is all, like, we needed the thing that is dealing damage to the people swarming us and making us live through that damage, all right? Here, more skill damage works, okay? And whenever you use an active skill, you get a shield. Granted, 8-second internal cooldown is so long that extra activations of your active skill is not going to make this fire off that much more frequently, and it's only 400 shielding factor. But there's like some synergy, I guess. If we continue on, all right, if you're serving as a garrison commander, 15 defense, 15 attack, and, you know, there's a chance you do some big damage after having a shield, okay. And you take 10% less normal damage, that's a W. And by the way, if you make it mixed troops, you take an extra 20% less normal attack damage. So, like, maybe the play is Hera primary with the new commander as the secondary. And I say Hera primary because, okay, you're going to need a leadership set. You're going to need some very specific equipment to pull this off. But if you do, there is one talent where you get synergy. Whenever this commander's troop uses an active skill, you get 20% defense for 2 seconds. I mean, the amount I am reaching to try to find a synergy here is pretty astonishing. I mean, you really have to try to find it. And maybe I'm just missing it. Like, I am totally open to, like, wow, Chisgule, how did you miss this obvious synergy? I haven't found it yet. I haven't found it yet. I don't know, man. So yeah, the new commander. I think she will be very good against rallies where you cannot get swarmed or you will not get swarmed. And I think the thing that endgame meta players are worried about is not that at all, because there's plenty of ways to deal with that. The thing we really need is anti-swarm at all times. And I think perhaps this is a head nod to the power level of Gorgo and Attila. And the developers are like, nope, Garrison's too strong already. Sorry, folks. But keep in mind that Belisarius Prime is about to come to the game too. And Belisarius Prime is going to make swarming even more punishing. Every swarming march at pretty much at all times is going to be doing 12% more all damage. And the garrison's going to be using their active skills less frequently because of the rage requirement going up. I guess in some ways that doesn't affect Eleanor because she'll have the extra way of using her active skill, but it's only once every 10 seconds. Like there's a 10-second internal cooldown on that thing. So like, I don't know, man. I'm trying to find what this commander could do. And I really think it's like, yeah, sure, I guess passes. That thing that you already had a bunch of different ways to handle that situation for. And did cavalry have a bunch of different ways to handle it? I mean, yeah, you already had Jan Ziska, right? And then if you're in an artifact KVK, you had a ton of stuff. So if you are a Cav player, I think this new garrison is awesome. And it could just be, folks, it could just be genuinely that the developers heard your feedback, that the power creep is too much, and that commanders are coming out too frequently. And so they're like, all right, we're just going to like make commanders that do specific things. And fewer people need to work on those. And there you go. Right? Like, good news. When there's a commander you don't need to work on, you save some sculptures. I do feel like a part of the reason we're in this situation is because of the weirdness of smite damage. So this is going to be a natural consequence of the existence of smite damage, and specifically the existence of smite damage on another recent garrison. Because normally you might say, well, like, do two of the more recent garrisons pair together in some way and in some other KVK? And like, no, I mean, maybe, but you know, like Gorgo does not seem like the thing that would really make this new commander sing. I could be wrong, right? It could be that the two of them together actually slap. Maybe. It's possible. I just think Attila is just going to be better. It's the weirdness. And since we're talking about mixing the troop type anyways, like, yeah, you just use the artifact for that. And on the topic of Attila, right, the reason you would not be excited to use Attila with this new garrison, and I, like, look, I talked about this with Cortex and Chisgule. It was one of the first things I brought up. It was like, okay, so good news, you can't get silenced. That's big. For a commander that's trying to use their active skill a lot, this is really, really big, okay? But also, boosting your all damage is nice, okay? Right? Like, there's a lot that's in here that's good, but you're going to deal 30% less skill damage. So there's, like, not really tankiness here on Attila. Like, neither commander has it. I don't know, folks. When this commander gets into the game, the new one, we're going to go test it. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on it. Pretty much anytime a new commander's come into the game, I go and stream it. The exception has been the new Siege commanders, because, like, oh, sorry, folks, is what it is. Also in KVK for Lapu Lapu. But for the most part, I live stream when a new commander comes in game, somebody maxes out, we go and test it. So if that's what you want to see, subscribe to the channel. We can theory craft all we want, but once we get our hands on it, the reality of the situation will be revealed. And if you want to see what I think the reality is for Belisarius Prime, I have a card in the end screen. You can go check that out. Belisarius Prime is going to make it even harder for this new garrison to survive, despite the fact that, hey, he makes the rage requirement higher. She can use her active skills anyways. Bro, I don't think she can handle the swarm. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.